Buddy, good to see you on this July 4th weekend. I'm glad you decided to come to church on a holiday weekend. That's a blessing. It's always good to see somebody come back to church. Every time it's a performance review every Sunday morning. I get up and preach and then hope people come back. But I'm glad you're here. I have some special guests here today that I want to introduce to you. Dr. Steve Height and Miss Kara, his wife. We played Dixie for her. She's from Mississippi. Born in Alabama, raised in Mississippi, and somehow found him in California. Can you believe that? No? Where did you guys meet? It was Florida Disney that you're at. Yeah, okay. Anyway, Dr. Height and I have known each other since right after Elizabeth and I got married, right after my dad passed away. We ran into each other, and I won't give you the whole boring story, but it's not boring to us. We raised our kids together for many years. He was the vice president of our Bible college in Indiana, and I have several books on my shelf that he wrote, and we have got into many, many things together. Wow, we were talking yesterday, one of the most exciting things that he ever pulled off that I got to be part of was we brought a Vietnam Wall to our town, and we had 10,000 people show up, had the Navy band, and we had this pulpit out there, and the names of everyone that died in Vietnam was read behind this pulpit, this one right here. And we had, it involved Huey choppers. It involved, like I said, the Navy band. It was quite a deal. It was the biggest shenanigan we pulled off in our town. And I'm so glad to have them visiting with us this weekend. So you pray that God will move their hearts to come back down here. And no, I'm kidding. Anyway, I want you to meet him, best friend I've ever had in the world, and we have fought more than brothers. We fight all the time, and our wives are like, "You guys still friends?" "Oh yeah." But it's one of the mottos we've always had is iron sharpens iron, and I have nobody that I can yell at and still be my friend. We get very passionate about things about the Bible. And some of you guys know about some of my weird stuff about the Christmas tree and stuff. Of course, we hammered out some of our beliefs on that together. And so I just want you to meet them. They're just very special people to us. I'm so glad to have them here visiting with us today. So I want you to turn in your Bibles, if you would, to 1 Timothy chapter 4. 1 Timothy chapter 4. And we're in the second section of this, the messenger's personal character building. We're talking about reaching a community for Christ, how you reach your community. And right now we're in this section where we're talking about what kind of things we should be doing personally, how we should be developing ourselves so that we have a message to preach, a message to speak. So 1 Timothy chapter 4, I want you to see this in verse 12. Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers in word and conversation and charity and spirit and faith in purity. Till I come, give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. Neglect not the gift that is in thee, which was given thee by prophecy with the laying on of the hands of the presbytery. Meditate upon these things, give thyself wholly to them, that thy profiting may appear to all. Take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine. Continue in them. Look at this line. I underline this line in my Bible. For in doing this, thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee. You see, when we're talking about reaching our community, remember, you have to first save yourself and then them that hear thee. When we do, critical incident debriefs, one of the things that we talk to all of first responders about is you have to take care of yourself first. And one of the things we talk about is how many of you have ever flown on a commercial flight? on an airline. And what do they tell you when those oxygen masks, the stewardess gets up there and she pulls the oxygen mask out and she says, if you're traveling with a child and, we lose pressure in the cabin, first put the oxygen mask on your face and then on your child's, right? Why? Because if you put it on the child first and then pass out, you can't help them and they're stuck with it. And so they say, take care of yourself first. One of the stories that I often tell in a debrief is back in Goshen, we had these triple play at Goshen, Indiana. We had these triple play exercises where we would bring in multiple wrecks and crashes and things. And so I remember this one particular time we had helicopters. We had a scenario set up. We had actors that would come and do practice a tragedy. And this one particular time we had like 300, I think, actors, something like that. And we had a school bus and we had a semi-truck that had a chemical spill in it, and it was releasing, supposedly, releasing gas into the air. And then we had a car that had run into the school bus. And so the scenario was that there was a guy in the car and his leg had been cut off. And then there were students in the school bus that had been hurt, injured, and the school bus had run into the back of the semi-truck who was releasing gas in the air. And so after we'd gone through the scenario, the guy that was the instructor, he asked everybody in the room, there was a bunch of us in the room, and he said, okay, so here's what happened. This guy, he's 45 years old. He's in the car. His leg has been basically cut off. He's bleeding. He's going to die in seconds. Okay? There's a child on the bus, and he has got his arm stuck in the window, and if he moves, it's going to sever an artery, and he's going to bleed out. Now, right now, the second he's okay, but if he moves, it's going to be a problem. Now, you are the first responder on the scene. Who do you take care of? You have to pick one. See, she's got it right there. Do you know that I have created this scenario 100 times in meetings? You know what 99% of the responses are? Of course, I kind of gave you a lead in a little bit of where we were headed with it. But you know what 99% of the time? They'll say, take care of the kid first. Right? Because the other guy, but they forget about the chemical spill, and Karen nailed it. First thing you're supposed to do is take care of yourself. In that, when we were talking about that, and when that teacher, the instructor, said to everyone, who do you take care of? Everybody's, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, if the kid just holds still, tell him, hold still, I'll patch this guy, patch you guys. I'm trying to figure out how to juggle them both. And that wasn't the right answer. The right answer was, put your mask on first, because if you walk in, now we have 3 people to take care of instead of 2. You see? Because the gas was going to overwhelm you. Now see, when it comes to reaching your community, remember, you must take care of yourself spiritually first before you can help someone else. Right? You get that? That's very, very important. And so when we talk about that, how do we build ourselves? How do we strengthen our own spiritual resolve so that, Dick, you and I have talked about some of the things. I won't tell all your stories. You can tell your stories. If you want some stories, Dick's got some, right? Doesn't he? Yeah. Get back on the plane, right? There's some great stories. But Dick was undercover cop for years. And some of the things he's told me that he's seen, boy, it just rattles you. And you realize when you're out there trying to help people, a friend of ours, Brad Rogers, used to always say, And when you're a cop, no one calls 911 and asks you to come to a birthday party and process. It's usually a bad deal. And you're around bad people. And that has an effect on you. Now, think about this. As a Christian, who are we trying to help? Okay, let's back up for a second. I have some friends that are, during Gay Pride Month, they were promoting the LGBTQ community and acting like I hated all of them. Do I hate gays? No. I don't hate those people that are sinners. Hello? The cross? What's that about? It's about love. It's about giving your life for them because their lives are falling apart. The world doesn't get that, right? So, my thought is, okay, so we're immersed in this culture, and all around us are these wicked things, these vile things. Look, I am infuriated that the public school is setting up kitty litter boxes in the bathrooms for these furry people, whatever they are. The kids that are identifying as cats. I am furious about that, okay? I think that the public school has really messed up in this department. But think about it. Think about a young lady who thinks she's a cat and is told by her teacher, you can be anything you want to be, Josh. You can be a cat if you want to be. Now, this little girl is messed up in her head. Do we get angry at her? What about a young lady who finds out in junior high that all the boys in junior high are stupid jerks? And so the school tells her, you're probably a lesbian because you don't like boys, you like girls. And she finds out girls can relate to her better, and all of a sudden she's really confused because everyone's telling her, oh, you're probably a lesbian. Should we hate her? Look, here's the thing. There are so many people confused. There's mental issues. There's emotional issues. There's so many problems in our culture. And when you get up close and personal to those things, it can make you crazy. Sometimes preachers, we get to preaching against sin and we climb on chairs and yell and scream and spit and holler. And people misunderstand and say, well, they're yelling at me. No, it can drive you over the edge, the insanity. I mean, the gas prices at the pump are absolutely stupid. There's no reason for them. No reason at all. Well, just buy an electric car. Sure. My next 5 lives, I'll mortgage everything I've got, and maybe I can buy one. You know what I'm saying? It's insane what they're telling us. It's absolutely insane. And okay, I got to talk about politics for a second. Roe versus Wade, okay? So the liberals are absolutely losing their lunch over Roe v. Wade being overturned. That's what's in the newspaper. The newspaper's saying Roe v. Wade. Do you realize what actually happened at the Supreme Court? What happened was, I think, it was Mississippi, wasn't it? There was a law or a rule or something that said, there was something about a decision they had made in their Congress, state Congress or whatever, that abortions after 15 weeks were illegal. And so that went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court let their rule stand. Okay? And basically said this is not a federal decision, this is a state's rights, and gave the rights back to the local communities in the states. It's the whole thing the Civil War was fought over, if you'll remember right. Anybody? Some of you remember that. Dick, do you remember that? So, just messing with you, man. He remembers the Civil War. Yeah, you were just a drummer boy then, but anyway. So, the truth is that what they've done, and what they're trying to do, is foment the anger in the streets. The same thing they did in the Civil War over slavery. The federal government decided that slavery was a states' rights issue. And so they were sending people to die over the fact that, over slavery. And that wasn't the issue. The issue was states' rights, which is the exact same thing that the Supreme Court's been saying. This is a states' rights thing. So in Illinois, I hate to tell you this, but until we get a new governor, in Illinois has become an abortion destination. Oh, that's horrible, isn't it? Think about it. And so there's Illinoisans that are screaming, Roe versus Wade's taking away the rights of the women. No. You can, in Illinois, you can kill your baby almost up to the birth time. So you liberals, just calm down, keep your shirts on. You guys can even have more rights. And the whole thing about abortion is a big problem anyway when you think about it. So they tell you, but these moms don't want to raise these babies. Well, what if these moms decide they don't want to take care of the dads? Well, the dad's in the way. We're just going to shoot the dad. It's the woman's right to choose. I mean, you don't get to kill another life, right? But anyway, I'm digressing. What I'm saying is what the government has done is put the rights back in the states and letting the states determine for themselves. Well, several states have decided to make abortion illegal, which is freaking them out. So what happens? What do we do? I'll tell you. When you look at the insanity, it drives you nuts, and you literally become insane as well. And you look like a screaming idiot. Right? That's not how you reach your community. We have to be calm and gentle, right? And loving and caring. Several years ago when I put that sign out front that I was kind of responding to President Obama when he said that love is for everyone. And I put out on the sign, love is for everyone, but marriage is for a man and a woman. And so I had these college kids stop by from Lakeland College, and their teacher had told them that if they could get me to take the sign down, they would get extra credit in their class. So for 2 hours, these two boys sat in my office and tried to make me mad. They tried. Well, somehow or other, God was with me that day, and I didn't get angry because I felt really sad for them because they really had no idea what they were talking about. They were telling me that there was a population explosion and that abortion, they got onto abortion. They said abortion will control the population so we aren't living on top of each other. I said, you going to which college? They said Lakeland. I said, have you looked around the fields around Lakeland? Are there people stacked up living around Lakeland like that? I said to the one young man, I said, where did you grow up? He said, well, Gays. I'm like, have you been to Gays lately? There's 300 people in the town. I mean, you can throw a golf ball in any direction and not hit anyone. The only skyscraper in Gays is a 2-story outhouse. I mean, come on, dude. As we talked, after a while, they said to me, they told me, we are trying to make you mad. We don't understand why you're not mad. Because it's not your fault you're taught this stupid stuff. What I'm telling you is, when we try to reach our community for Christ, we have to keep an even keel. And the even keel that is built before the moment. It's built in your private devotions. It's built in your personal character building before you have the conflict. Right after the Oklahoma City bombing, I was sitting in a classroom. I was getting some training from FEMA, and the FEMA instructor there said to us, "Look," he said, "you guys have to prepare yourself before the disaster." He said, "You cannot wait till the disaster comes and say, 'Wait, let me get my certification,' so that you can be used. You have to prepare yourself so that when the disaster happens, you're ready," right? You get what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking to you about. Now, Paul looked at Timothy, and he said to Timothy, "Timothy, here's some things you need to do. This will build you from the inside out. This will make you the strong person. As a young man, this is what you need." And so I put it together and called it Timothy's to-do list. I want to show you what he says here in Timothy's to-do list. He says in verse 12, "Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers." And then here's the things he said for Timothy to work on. In word. What you talk about. The subjects that interest you. Your vocabulary. In word. You should be an example. When you speak, the things that you say, the words that you say, the way you conduct yourself in your speaking, the way you talk to folks, it ought to be an example of how to do it. Think about it. When someone listens to what you have to say about the political scene or about anything, you should be an example. Around the church, you don't like something that's going on. The words that you say should be an example on how to deal with a problem that needs addressed. Think through that. There are problems often that arise in a church, and there's conflicts, and there's differences of opinion. But your words ought to be an example. This is how you do this. See what I'm saying? In Matthew chapter 12, verse 36, the verse, you can look there if you want to, but it says that every idle word that man shall speak, he'll give account thereof in the day of judgment. Every idle word. Do you realize when you're sitting around just chewing the fat and you're just saying stuff, and boy, whatever feeling is fomenting under the surface, you're just feeling stuff and you're just letting it come out. Do you realize that those are idle words that you will give an account for? And those idle words can have a difference. They can make a difference. They can destroy someone, they can discourage someone, or they could build someone up. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made. Right? He spoke and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast, right? So his words were strong and powerful, and they created things. And he says to us, our words are strong and powerful. Our words can build. Our words can tear down. I'm reading a book right now called Good to Great, and a pastor friend recommended it to me. This is actually my book, Steve. I bought it. I did not steal it from your library. He walked out of my library this morning with books in his hand. Anyway, yeah, I gave it to him. But we have a problem with our books disappearing in each other's library. This book, Good to Great, what it did was this guy did some research. Actually, a team did research on the Fortune 500 companies, and they looked to see how many Fortune 500 Fortune 500 companies had gone from just mediocre, okay, to a meteor rise. Like here they are, and they're all of a sudden like this, and their stocks went off the chart, beat everybody. Some companies have done that. He mentioned Walgreens. Walgreens is one of them, has taken a meteor rise, just boom like that. And so they put these stringent rules down to try to find the best companies, and they picked out, I can't remember, 10 companies, I think, that they found out of the Fortune 500 that were not just mediocre, that were just top of the line. And he said they looked to see what was the difference between them and other companies. One of the things that stuck out to me was the CEOs of the companies. He picked out like 5 of the 10, I think. And he highlighted these CEOs. And he said, he said, wherever they talk about CEOs, they don't talk about these guys. Now, you would think they would, because their companies, under their leadership, their companies went from mediocre to pew. So it's obvious that the leadership, Lee Robertson used to say, everything rises and falls on leadership. It's obvious that the leadership had something to do with it. What was the difference? Well, they found that some of the companies, they would bring in some heavy hitters. They'd bring in some, big name, somebody or other that's a mover and shaker. And they come in, well, these guys are big names. They can do blah, 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 blah. And those companies never really went up. They just kind of like maintained. And they had this big name with them, and they didn't get much better. He said the meteor rises in those companies was marked by CEOs that had a passion for building up their team instead of building up their reputation. So while these guys are quiet and unassuming, they would advance all of their people. And when someone would come and say to them, how did you do this? They would say, oh, it was my team member. It was this person and that person that did it. And everyone would walk away saying, yeah, the CEO. And they're like, no. And they didn't want biographies written about them. They were just like unassuming, just pushing, building other people. And that's what made the difference in the company. Their words. Think about it. Do you know you can say the right thing at the right time and build someone up? You could say the wrong thing at the wrong time and destroy someone's life. Think about it. If you want to work in your community, I've talked to you about this before. Just leading somebody to Christ is not all there is to do in your community. It's going in to different places, different businesses. It's sitting at the restaurant and telling the waitress who is harried and bothered that she's doing a wonderful job. It's giving her an extra $5 because she's having a crabby day, and an extra $5 is going to help her. I've sat with Christians at the restaurant, and they'll, I was with one guy one time. He goes around the country. He's got this bombastic voice. When he moves into the room, he fills the room. Everybody turns to look at him because he's a giant of a man. I'm at the restaurant with him, and he ordered his eggs. And he told the waitress, of course, he wasn't on display at the restaurant. It's just him and me. And nobody knew him there. And so he said, I want my eggs. I want them over easy, but I don't want the yolk running. He said, I want the yolk just walking just a little bit. And I'm like, what? You could eat your eggs however you want to. I mean, I'll eat eggs any way you give them to me. If the white still looks like snot, I'll still eat them if you give me toast. I mean, I like eggs any way you make them. If you burn them, I'll eat them. I mean, if you can. When I make scrambled eggs, I put everything I can find in the fridge, cut it up, dice it up, put it in there, mix it together. Lots of cheese. It tastes wonderful. And bacon. That always that's wonderful. I'll take eggs and put them in the microwave, sprinkle bacon bits on top of them, cover them in salt, pepper, and cheese, stick them in the microwave, and when it comes out, it looks like soup. Stir it up. I call it egg soup. I love it. Eat it with a spoon. What's the matter with you? Well, this guy, he said, well, we won't discuss that, right? Thank you. Stop thinking about what's all wrong with me. All right. So this guy, this preacher, he said to me, the eggs came back, and buddy, they were too hard. He sent him back. He said, no, that's not going to work for me. I'm like, can't you just thank the Lord for the food, ask him to turn him into walking yolk on the way down? Can't you just give the lady a break? And she's like, rolls her eyes, goes back in. Then he complained about his coffee. And it was like one thing, and I'm like, dude, when we got up, he left a track on the table. I snuck back and stuck some money in it. I was embarrassed. I was hoping that address of our church wasn't on that track because he was a basic jerk to her. I'm going to tell you something. How you conduct yourself in the community to everyone. Make it a habit to be polite. Make it a habit to think about their lives. Make it a habit to care about them. Right? Standing in the line at Big Lots. Huh? Everything's piled up and the lady in front of you is harried. And, wow, the gal behind the cash register would really appreciate it if you gave her a smile and said, how was your day? Right? Happens, right? Honestly, I'm going to tell you, work on your words. That's going to affect everything you do and how you help people. The second thing he says, your conversation. Conversation, what we've been talking about, conversation is really talking about your behavior. In chapter 3 of 1 Timothy, verse 15, but if I tarry long, that thou mayest know how thou oughtest to behave thyself. It's speaking in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, in the church, how you're supposed to behave yourself in the church. He's talking about your behavior. Conversation is how you behave. Not just what you say, but the things you do. We talk about tipping and those kinds of things. The way you behave. The generosity that you have when you give away T-shirts at the track, Amber. The way, I'm just kidding with you. I'm always giving away stuff I'm not supposed to be giving away. But she gets on me every now and then. But rightfully so. But how we behave towards people is very, very important. You should be an example in behavior. Is that right? Look at what it says in charity. In charity, set an example in charity. Charity is described in 1 Corinthians 13. It's love in action, love with your boots on. It's not just how you treat someone, not just how you feel about someone. It's how you behave towards that person. Demonstrating true love, demonstrating generosity, demonstrating you honestly care. Isaiah, I want you to go back to Isaiah 58. You guys have heard me talk about this quite a bit. He says, is this a fast that I have chosen, to smite with the fist of wickedness? He said in verse 5, is it such a fast that I have chosen, a day for man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush, to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Wilt thou call this a fast, an acceptable day of the Lord? Is not this the fast that I have chosen? What? To loose the bands of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke. Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy house? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh. That charity, that love in action, it's important. I want to tell you about your son, Brylan, yesterday. He blessed my heart, I'm going to tell you. So, Brother Steve and I are sitting out there at Zach's Tracks. We're sitting out at the picnic table talking. And Amber came and told us that she'd gotten some new ice cream flavor in our, if you haven't checked out our ice cream, shut up. It's, this is church. So, anyway, we were sitting there and we're talking about ice cream, and she told Steve that she'd gotten his favorite kind of ice cream out there. And so he said, oh, wow. I said, Amber, go get him one. And I reached in my wallet because I was going to buy him one, because I have to buy the ice cream from Amber. And so Brylan stands up. He's 14, right? He sends up. He doesn't know. He knows Steve's important to me. He knows we're friends. But he looks at me, he stands up, he said, let me get that. And he went, isn't that something? That warms your heart, doesn't it? He went right over and paid for the ice cream and brought it back to him. First time he'd ever met him. Oh, man alive, that kid's getting some good training. You know what I'm saying? That is a good job on that, Mom and Dad. That love in action, that charity, reaching out and doing something positive for someone else. Just a teenage boy pulling money from his pocket to give ice cream. That, man, I about stood on the top of the ticket booth and danced a jig. I mean, it just made me feel wonderful to see that's the kind of young people in our church. You know what I'm saying? That was wonderful. Charity, that's an example I wanted to tell you about, because that's an example of how we ought to behave. You know? Look at the spirit, your spirit. He said, be an example in your spirit. In Daniel chapter 6, verse 3, the Bible says, now this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes. And it says specifically, I underline this in my Bible too, specifically because an excellent spirit was found in him. An excellent spirit. Your attitude. Boy, well, nobody ever notices me. Nobody ever, I want to do something for God. Fix your attitude because you probably could right now do something for God. There's so many opportunities. But I want to do that. Well, do what's in front of you. Have a good attitude about what's around you. So I'm always looking for something in the future, something that somebody else has, covetousness, and do what's in front of you. You can do so. Your spirit will advance you. Your attitude will advance you. The Bible says your gifts will bring you before great men. Right? It says. Hebrews chapter 11. He says you should be an example in your faith. Hebrews 11:6 says, he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So without faith, it is impossible to please him, God. Without faith. Do you know what? When everyone's wringing their hands, oh, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Just trust God. Just believe him. It's going to be okay. We read the last chapter, right? We're in there slugging away. Yeah, there's wickedness. Yeah, there's evil around us. But that's what you're here for. Hello? You're supposed to be a light. A city that's not on a hill that cannot be hid. A candle that's on top of the bushel, not underneath it. Stop wringing your hands and fussing and fuming and acting like a crotchety old person. Right? I don't want to be a crotchety old person. Got to work on that. Right? So we're not that way. Not crabby and nasty and mean and get off my lawn. Right? Got to be careful. Why? And how do we do that? Because of faith. Because of faith. I'm not talking about that. Because of faith. Faith. Believing God. Believing that God is going to win in the end. And then lastly, he says, be an example in purity. Clean in mind, body, soul, and spirit. When I put down, look at Leviticus 21, because I actually planned on going there instead of talking about politics. But if you went back and looked at Leviticus 21, you would see the list. It's like mind-blowing what they required for the priest to go into the temple. I mean, did you know that a priest that went into the temple could not marry a woman outside of his tribe? He could not marry a woman that had been married before, whether she was divorced or widowed. Couldn't marry her. Did you know that in the Old Testament, if she was a harlot woman, he couldn't marry her and still be a priest? God was very, very specific about the people that were in the temple. And he listed all of these things that you could not do to keep yourself pure and clean. Now the Pharisees, took that to extremes. Watch this now. Follow me here because I'm about done. What the Pharisees did wrong was the Pharisees became judge, jury, and executioner for anyone that did not follow what they thought they should follow. If you read in Matthew 23, Jesus said, listen to what the Pharisees say. Do what they say, don't do what they do. Because the Pharisees had some of the stuff down that they were supposed to do, but they just didn't do it themselves. And they became judge and jury. Now listen to this. Purity, listen, purity is about what you do, not about what you think somebody else should do. How you conduct yourself, not how somebody else conducts themselves. I want to speak to this issue real quick. I've grown up in fundamental churches, as you know, where there's been a lot of conversations about women's clothing. I've had preachers that will absolutely embarrass you from the pulpit telling women how they should and should not dress. Because they say, you got to keep the men's minds pure. Can I say to you guys, no, it's not how they dress that keeps your mind pure. Just go to a different culture in a different country and you'll find out. People don't always cover up. And if God wants you to reach your community, you have to be able to have a pure mind. To the pure, all things are pure. Men, women, it's what you do. It's how you are. Jesus said, there is nothing outside of you that can defile you. It's what's within that defiles you. Now, I think women should dress right. I think men should dress right. I think we should be polite to each other and be respectful to each other. Hello, that's really what it's about. It's respect. You know, if you guys came in here in the clothes that you wore to the beach, I mean, would you really be respecting God's house and the people around? Well, I just feel more comfortable. No one else is that comfortable. Put your shirt on. You know what I'm saying? The truth is, purity is not about the standards that we force on everyone else. Purity is about what's in our hearts and minds. And he said, be an example. Be the kind of person that can walk up to a young lady who has been trafficked and does not understand what a clean man in her life is about, and show her what a father figure or a brother figure, how they should behave. Right? That's an example of purity. Show them how. I'm gonna tell you this so you know. One of the things I'm working on right now, there is a movement in our state, and I'm working. This is one of the things I'm working on. And we have some in our town that are interested in this. We are putting together a coalition to try to deal with the sex trafficking in Illinois. And actually have some connections in Chicago. I've met with them a couple times. There's one person that has very, very much involved in, across the state, a lot of companies. And he actually has companies in every state of the union. And he talked to me last week, 2 weeks ago. We were on the phone about an hour. And he is forming a coalition in Springfield and Chicago and different places around the state. And I'm on that coalition to see if we can deal with the sex trafficking problem in Illinois. Now, I've listened to survivors. We had a survivor in here in this room talking to police officers, and the problems that these survivors have are horrible. You cannot even imagine, and how they perceive the world. They see the world through a messed up lens. And I want to tell you something, that when you get into this area and try to reach your community and your world, and you understand that Illinois, because of Illinois' looseness on abortion, in fact, they allow in Illinois, I believe the law says that a young person that wants an abortion can get it now in Illinois without parental. Isn't that correct? Without parental consent. Because of that, you see why the sex traffickers love Illinois. Just put that together. You know that's true. So in Illinois, there's this whole mess, and it's getting worse. And when they make abortion a destination place, well, we've just increased the cartel activity and all of that in our state. Say, well, you're not going to make it. Oh, we're going to try. It's like the boy that was walking along the beach, and there were thousands of starfish laying on the beach. And a guy from up the top was walking along, and he saw the little boy look at the starfish, and he saw the little boy reach down and pick up a starfish and throw it back into the ocean. And he picked up another one, and he threw it back into the ocean. He picked up another one and threw it back in the ocean. The guy up the top, he got a little frustrated. He said, "Hey, young man," he said, "you can't save all those starfish." And the little boy looked at him, reached down, picked up another one, threw it in the ocean. "Nope, but I saved that one." Right? That's what we got to do. All right, take a break.